This is Damon Fordham, professor of history at Virginia College and the author of True Stories of Black South Carolina, Voices of Black South Carolina, and the novel Mr. Potts and Me, here for So Exquisite Charleston to give you a little bit of something that you may not know about the great local blacksmith, Phillip Simmons. And this behind me is the house of the great Phillip Simmons, a legendary blacksmith here in Charleston who lived from the years 1912 to 2009. And I wrote a chapter about him in my book, Voices of Black South Carolina, that I'd like to share with you for the So Exquisite Charleston website this morning. Mr. Simmons was born in 1912 in Daniel Island, South Carolina, which is not very far from the city of Charleston. As a child, however, the school for black children only opened on a regular basis, a few months a year, and his parents thought he could do better. So they sent him to live in the city of Charleston, where he attended Buste Elementary School, which is today known as Buste Academy on Calhoun Street. And while he was there, he was walking past a blacksmith shop one day in the year 1925, when he was 13 years old. And he heard the clanging and the noise of the blacksmith shop, and he saw the sparks flying, and as a young boy he was inspired. So he asked Mr. Peter Simmons, who was an ex-slave who was of no relation to him, if he could be an apprentice to him, and he was taken on. So Peter Simmons, a former slave from Mount Pleasant who died, I believe, in the 1950s or so, he taught Phillip Simmons the fine art of blacksmithing. And Peter Simmons himself learned the art of blacksmithing from his enslaved ancestors from the west coast of Africa, where the Mandinka tribe was very well known for the art of blacksmithing and ironworks. So Mr. Simmons began to learn how to do this. At first, he helped do blacksmithing for horse-drawn carriages, which at that time was still widely used in the city of Charleston. And when that came out of fashion with the automobile, he began to design a series of gates along the prominent houses of downtown Charleston, including his former elementary school, Buste Elementary. Then, as time went on, he became widely known for his gate work. And so much so that in 1983, President Ronald Wilson Reagan invited him to the White House and gave him an award for his great contribution to the arts in America. But along with all these other well-known accolades from the Smithsonian Institution, which also had some of his artwork, I got a chance to know him personally during the years that I was a journalist before I started teaching. On one occasion, I brought a group of children here to, over in the rear, if you could take a look back this way, you can see where Mr. Simmons used to practice his craft in that building in the rear. Today, some of his younger cousins also continue his work to this day. But anyway, I took a group of children back there around 1996 or 1997 or so, and one of the little girls was just fascinated by what he was doing well into his 90s, being able to hammer out this intricate artwork. And so she asked him, Mr. Simmons, how long did it take you to learn to be a blacksmith? And he replied, I'm still learning. That's what life is all about. And on another occasion, I was covering a party at the South of Broad, which is a well-known wealthy section here in the city of Charleston. It was for the film When We Were Kings that starred Muhammad Ali. And the party that they had south of Broad was one of these society things where it was pretty boring, and I couldn't wait to leave. And then I saw the great Mr. Simmons seated there with a tuxedo, and all of these rich folks were surrounding him, just oohing and ahhing. Oh, Mr. Simmons, how did you learn to create such intricate artwork? And he just sat there with all this humility and said, well, you know, all I just do is just take care of the customer. That's all I do. And I was so honored by the fact that here's a man who would not have been allowed in that mansion in his youth except to serve there. Here he is being honored for his work, and the work he did spoke for him. And finally, one thing that Mr. Simmons was always fond of telling people, that it was good to pray, but once you finished, you have to get off your knees and hustle. And his great life was a testimony to that statement. This is Damon Fordham telling you about the great Charlestonian blacksmith, Mr. Phillip Simmons.